بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله أما بعد إن خير الكلام كلام الله وخير الهدى هدى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها كل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار صلى الله يعيذنا من نار جهنم من شدتها. Come to a very critical part of the book of Imam Ahmed. All of the book is important, but it's important that we grasp, comprehend, and understand what we're dealing with here today. Along with our wives, along with our children, it has to be what we're upon and what we're calling to. And Imam Ahmed said that the Sunnah with us, As-Sunnah to indana, the Sunnah to us are the narrations of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he said that the Sunnah explains the Quran. The Sunnah gives the tafsir and the meaning of the Quran. And the Sunnah is the dala'il of the Quran. Dala'il, the dalil. The Sunnah shows the evidences and the indications and the correct meanings of the interpretation of the Quran. Then he said, وَلَيْسَ فِي السُّنَّةِ قِيَاسٌ وَلَا تُدْرَكُ بِالْعُقُولِ وَالْأَهْوَاءِ إِنَّمَا هُوَ الاتِّبَاعُ تَرْكُ الْهَوَى. He said, as it relates to the Sunnah, there is no qiyas, analytical reasoning. There's no qiyas, al-qiyas. And the Sunnah is not comprehended by your intellect or by your desires, but instead the Sunnah is following and leaving off desires. That last part, inshallah, will come back to it. Because if a person, and I can imagine myself being a brand new Muslim, and someone says to me that there is no qiyas in the Sunnah. Okay, maybe I don't understand qiyas, but if they said the Sunnah is not understood by your intellect, I say, what? I can't understand by my intellect. What? So we'll come back to that, inshallah, for sure. In explaining these issues, he said that the Sunnah to us, this is very clear. We have to understand that when he said to us, and Imam Ahmed is not talking about the Sunnah to the people of the American Muslim mission of Imam Warith bin Muhammad. It's not talking about the Sunnah to Louis Farrakhan. It's not talking about the Sunnah and the understanding of the Sunnah between the Shiite and the Sunnah. He's not talking about that. He's not talking, when he said the Sunnah to us, he's not talking about the Sunnah to the people of the madhabs who put the position of the madhab before what the Sunnah said. Not talking about that. Even if the person of the madhab respects the Sunnah, he understands respect, but the Sunnah told him to say Ameen. The Sunnah told him to do Raf' al-Yadayn, and he said no. It's not talking about him. The Sunnah here, the Sunnah, As-Sunnah indana, the Sunnah to us. It's not talking about the Sunnah with the tasawwur and the mafhum, the understanding of the many jama'at of al-Islam. People who make takfir, people make tabdir, people want to blow up Muslims, people want to make khuruj against the leader of the Muslims, where the Sunnah comes and tells them, be patient, don't make khuruj against the leader. He says, no. The Sunnah comes inside Bukhari and Muslim and tells him, just as Abu Usama, I expect my wife and my children to listen to me and obey me because I am the Imam and the Amir in my house. And whatever my wife don't like about whatever I do, they can't make khuruj against me. If they wanted to rectify me and give me advice, they have to do it a particular way. I will insist on that, and all of you will insist on that. Same thing as it relates to the leader. The sunnah to us is not talking about that person who is nitpicking and cherry picking. I will insist that my wives listen to me. Am I perfect? Oh, my wife wants me to do more. My wife wants me to spend more time. My wife wants me to take her to Alligator House. What's that thing? Gatorland. Hey, I'm not here on a vacation. So because I don't take it to Alligator Land, my wife comes to the door and say, brothers, you have to get out, Osama corrected. I say, what are you doing? Just as I don't allow that, we can't allow that with the leaders of Al-Islam. Now, there are people who listen to that example, that one in particular, and they get agitated. And Imam Ahmed, when he said the sunnah to us, is not talking about those groups. He's talking about the sunnah of Ahl Sunnah, the sunnah to the people of Ahl Sunnah, the people of Ahlul Hadith. When he started the book off, and he said in the book that the sunnah is following the companions with us. He's talking about the people of Ahlul Hadith. May Allah make us of them. And Imam Abu Hanifa, whose madhab, the people in his madhab, has a lot of issues, a lot of good and a lot of issues. And Imam Abu Hanifa said, my madhab is if the hadith is authentic. It's authentic. So if I'm Hanafi, and Imam Ahmed, and Imam Abu Hanifa, if you find in the madhab that you don't do raf'ul yadayn, and Imam Abu Hanifa said, if you find a hadith saying that, then do it. So the sunnah to us, Ahl Sunnah, and I'm not talking about the Asha'ira who want to waste a lot of our time, African Americans and other than them, that they're really Ahl Sunnah. No. The proof is in the pudding, baby. The proof is in the pudding. It's not in kalam. You can show me better than you can tell me. He went on to mention, rahmatullahi alayhi, the sunnah gives the explanation of the Quran and the dala'il of the Quran. This is really important. The sunnah explains the Quran. First of all, at the top of the list, Akhi Shu'aib, Ali, Sheikh Nazir, Akhi Nasir. The sunnah is revelation, just as that Quran is revelation. Allah Azza wa Jal mentioned many ayat. وَمَا يَنْتِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ. He does not speak from his own desires. Instead, what he says is revelation that comes from Allah. Our mother, Al-Humayra bint Siddiq, may Allah be pleased with both of them, Aisha, she said, the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam kana khuluquhu al-Quran. His character was the Quran. I don't want to say he was a walking Quran. I don't want to say that. But he was the one who showed us the tabiq of the Quran, what it is to be patient, what it is to be upright. One of the companions, Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As, he had more hadith than Abu Huraira. So most people believe Abu Huraira had the majority of the hadith. He memorized the majority. But Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As used to write down. And Abu Huraira said that in Sahih Bukhari. He said there was no one who memorized more hadith than me, except Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As. He used to write down, and I didn't write down. Him and his father, nitroglycerin powerhouses, radiyallahu anhuma. Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As, one of the four Abadala, the four companions named Abdullah that had the majority of the hadith. Abdullah bin Amr bin As, Abdullah bin Abbas, Abdullah ibn Umar, and Abdullah bin Zubair, not Abdullah bin Mas'ud, who's a scholar in his own right. Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As used to write the hadith down. The kuffar used to say to him, why are you writing everything down? Why are you writing everything down? Muhammad is a human being, like everybody's a human being. He gets mad, he gets happy. Why do you write it? You say, oh, that's interesting. He went and said, Ya Rasulullah, the kuffar of Quraysh said this to me. The kuffar, they said that to me. Rasulullah told him, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, uktub. فَوَالَّذِي نَفْسِي بِيَدِهِ لَا يَخْرُجُ مِنْهُ إِلَّا الْحَقِّ. Continue to write. I swear by the one who my soul is in his hands, nothing comes out of my mouth except the truth. Because it's revelation. Hey, Ali Baba, the hadith, the sunnah is revelation. The Prophet mentioned, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, ala inni utitul Qur'an wa mithluhu ma'ahu. Verily I've been given the Qur'an and what is similar to it with it. He said that the Qur'an and the sunnah will never separate until you meet me at the fountain, at the Hawd. Meaning it will be together forever. Now, I won't say waste time. I can't spend a lot of time on this, but this is important, man. The Quran has some special qualities that the Sunnah doesn't have. And that there are weak hadith in the Sunnah. There are weak ones. No doubt. There are weak ones in the Sunnah. No doubt about that. No doubt about that. And when the Prophet was in Mecca, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then he came to Medina, he told the people, "Man kataba anni ghayr al-Quran falyamhuhu." Anyone who wrote hadith, anyone who wrote other than the Quran, erase it. That was the beginning of Islam. He told them, don't write my hadith. Why? Because they were new Muslims, and he didn't want the Quran and the Sunnah to be mixed up. But after they had been in Islam for some time, he started encouraging, commanding, write the Quran, write the Sunnah. Write the Sunnah. When you read the Quran, Alif Lam Mim, that's 30 hasana. The Sunnah is not like that. So don't get it twisted, boss. You gotta make those distinctions. Now is not the time to explain all of that. They said he used to teach us khutbatul hajah, with the emphasis that he would teach us a surah of the Quran, showing that the surah is greater. He, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they said, used to teach us salat al-istikhara, with the emphasis of the Quran. So the asl, the example is the Quran. But that doesn't take away from the Sunnah being with the Quran. You can't separate them. And I tell you, may my mother and my father be sacrificed. You put a man on an island with the Quran and another man on an island with only the Sunnah, that man is going to follow al-Islam better than the one with the Quran. So this is a story for another day. We have a lot to deal with, inshallah. He went on to mention that the Sunnah gives a tafsir of the Quran. So the Sunnah and the Hadith is revelation. Jibril would come down and teach him the Sunnah the same way he taught him the Quran. The same way. The other issue as it relates to the Sunnah of the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam is what Imam Ahmed is saying, that the Sunnah explains the Quran. وَأَنزَلْنَا إِلَيْكَ الذِّكْرَ لِتُبَيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ مَا نُزِّلَ إِلَيْهِمْ وَلَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. Ya Muhammad, we have revealed to you the book, the dhikr, so that you would explain to the people what was revealed to them in the hopes that they would understand. So the Quran came to him, Jibril came to him, gave him those ayat of the Quran, pray, do this, fast, jihad, do this, sadaqah, do this, the inheritance, the dress of the woman, do that, do this, and you explain these ayat to them. And the Prophet explained. So the Quran gives the tafsir and the explanation of the Sunnah. Got to understand that, man. The other really important issue is that he mentioned, rahimahullah ta'ala, and the Sunnah is the dala'il of the Quran, the dala'il. The Sunnah is the evidences and the indications of the correct meaning of the Quran. Don't you know Elijah Muhammad Nasir? Elijah Muhammad said that the white man is a devil and the white man is in the hellfire because Allah said in the Quran that he will raise people up with blue eyes. So because white people have blue eyes, that tafsir of that Quran means the white man? No. You have to refer back to the Sunnah. Can't refer to people like that. I just came from North Kakalaki. Where I met some of my elders. And I was sitting with those African American brothers and sisters who were in their 70s. There was a young brother there who knew a little Arabic, but he wouldn't speak Arabic with me. And he was giving his own interpretations of the Quran, like Warathuddin Muhammad. Ghafarallahu lahu wa lana wa rahimahullah. And he was saying things like when Allah created Adam, Adam is not one person. Adam is all of Bani Adam. Allah created all of mankind. It a rams is symbolic. Where'd you get that from? Adam wasn't in Jannah. Adam was in the earth. These are the things that their interpretations are. And I don't say that to put our brothers down. I say that they gotta wake up and smell a coffee, man. I don't care what kind of coffee you're drinking. You got to smell the coffee, man. This is 2024, man. This is real business here. Adam is not in Jannah. Come on, where you get that interpretation from? Where does that come from? The jinn. Well, that's hocus pocus. That's Christianity. The jinn are bad thoughts. The malaika are good thoughts. Where'd you get that from, son? And what's the difference between them and the Qadianis? What's the difference? The Qadianis. I got a call from an older Bangladeshi lady who's been in contact with me for the last 6-7 years, always reaching out to me about different issues. Wanted to know, what is the ruling of her niece getting married to a Qadiani, and that Qadiani having something to do with slaughtering a cow with the other members of the family? I said, listen, you already know the answer to that. That's why you asked me. Can Netanyahu slaughter a portion? Can he be the 5th or the 6th one? Can Netanyahu do that? Can Obama do that? She knows the answer. So the interpretation is that the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, wama Allah ta'ala mentioned in the Quran, وَمَا كَانَ مُحَمَّدٌ أَبَا أَحَدٍ مِّن رِجَالِكُمْ وَلَكِنْ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ وَخَاتَمُ النَّبِيِّينَ. Muhammad is not the father of any of you companions, any of you men, but he is the messenger of Allah and the khatam of the prophets and the messengers. Qadianis come and say, Khatam, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the one who gave the stamp of approval for Mirza Ghulam Ahmed. Where did you get that interpretation from? You are a non-Muslim, wala kirama. You're a non-Muslim. So the Sunnah is the dala'il. Now this is really important. I don't have time to get into all of these details, but Imam Ahmed is only picking out one aspect of the Sunnah because this is dealing with Aqidah. It's not dealing with fiqh or usul fiqh. Nasir. Us and our babies, our families. Sheikh Abdul Hadi, Akh Abdul Haq. Listen, the Sunnah does more than explain the Quran. The Sunnah, Shuaib, it brings rulings that are not in the Quran. The Sunnah comes and the Sunnah, the Quran will mention something in general. وَأَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَآتُوا الزَّكَاةَ. The Sunnah comes and it will show what does that mean. You do Rafi Yadayn, you read this way, you make sajda like that. The Sunnah comes and it explains the mushkil. There are things in the Quran that even the companions, when it was revealed, they didn't know. What is the meaning of that? The Sunnah came and let them know what it means. So the Sunnah is the dala'il of the Quran. It's not just Quran and Sunnah, Shiite and Sunni. Hey, it's more than that. You got to be able to read the room, brother. We have to know what we're dealing with and what is in the intended interpretation and the meaning of what that scholar said and what that scholar said and what is on the table. And you can't always do this big mistake as some of our brothers, and I'm going to tell you this. As-Sunnatu indana, Al-Imam Ahmed is talking about the people of As-Salafiyah. As-Salafiyah. You don't have to walk around saying, I'm Salafi. Leave that to me. I'll do that. Leave that to me. You don't have to do that. And if you don't do that, no, you don't have to do that. But I don't apologize. As-Salafiyah meaning what the companions understood from the religion, what the companions practiced as a religion. You never have to call yourself that a day in your life, but don't be opposed to it. Don't be opposed to it. I'm going to tell you from right here. So some of our brothers, unfortunately, would take these statements of the ulama out of context and not read the room. And as a result of that, make people innovators, run people away. No. Al-Imam Ahmed is not talking about all of the wazifa of the Sunnah. The Sunnah has a responsibility. The Sunnah wazifa. The Sunnah has Sheikh Abu Anas, wazifa, a function. The Sunnah does multiple things. Sunnah brings rules and regulations that are not in the Quran. They're not in the Quran. Like the impermissibility of a man marrying his maternal aunt and his maternal aunt. The Quran in Surah An-Nisa told us who we can't marry. Your mothers, your daughters, your sisters, your stepdaughters. All these people, you can't marry them. And it doesn't mention your aunties from both sides. So if a person was from the Quraniyun, he can go in and marry his mother's sister's father's sister. The Quran came with new rules and regulations. So read the room and know what the ulama are talking about. We're not getting into that because this is not a class of fiqh or usul fiqh. The Quran, as it relates to the aqidah of al-Islam, it explains these meanings of Allah's names, His attributes, what He does, what He doesn't do. He went on to mention rahimahullah ta'ala, and this is really the crux of today's lesson. He said, وَلَيْسَ فِي السُّنَّةِ قِيَاسٍ. There is no qiyas in the sunnah. Listen, my brothers and sisters, al-qiyas is from the masadir of a tashri'. It's from those things that make things halal and haram. The masdar, the sources of legislation. The four main ones, if you were to ask any regular Muslim, you have to know this, man. It should be like you picking it, like the peas that you got in your hair. African American got peas in your hair. It has to be, you just know this, man. It has to be a part of who you are, man. Like the 5 prayers. Someone said, what's the middle prayer? And you say, la adri. Come on, brother. Come on, man. You're supposed to know that at 5 years old, 6 years old. You're supposed to know that. The 4 sources of what make things halal and haram: the Quran, the Sunnah, Ijma', where all of the scholars of al-Islam, first and foremost, and all of the Muslims of al-Islam, they believe this thing is halal or haram. The Prophet says, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Lan tajtami'a ummati ala ad-dalala." My ummah will never agree on what is wrong. They will never have a consensus. So if you hear something, there's ijma in that. You can't come and go against that. It's haram. It's haram. Ijma, the consensus of al-Islam, of the scholars. For an example, you will find some major scholars saying, major companion scholars saying, after the death of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you could do muta' marriage. You'll find a companion saying you can have a relationship with a woman in the wrong place. You'll find a companion saying that you can drink khamr. Major scholars said that. And that was a mistake that they made. But you will never find this whole ummah saying some nonsense, something like that. It would never happen. It's impossible. So therefore, it makes something halal or haram, especially starting with the companions. If the companions see something as being halal, it's halal. Haram, haram. And the scholars throughout time. But the community is with that as well. But we don't pay attention to the community sometimes because, you know, in the community, we have some straight up sick people and knuckleheads. There are people who believe you can marry your daughter, you can marry your wife's daughter. I know situations back in the East Coast where a man married his stepdaughter after having relationships with his wife. You can't do that, man. What are you doing? I heard in the UK, a lot of brothers from Afro-Caribbean background, Jamaica, I don't want to stereotype, they said, Allah provided the pure things from the earth. Weed is from the earth. You can smoke weed. I'm sure you brothers heard that, right? You can roll up a blunt and just spark up and get on. So you'll find some people who say that. But you won't find everybody in our ummah saying that. So from the beginning, what are we talking about right now? The sources of legislation, Quran, Sunnah, al-Ijma' and Qiyas. Qiyas. Qiyas is analogical reasoning. Some scholars say Qiyas doesn't count, but that's a weak opinion. And the person who said that is one of the greatest scholars of al-Islam. Al-Imam from Spain, Al-Imam Ibn Hazm al-Andalusi. He was high-powered nitroglycerin. But I would never advise any young student who's just starting off to read what the works of Ibn Hazm, because you're going to be mutashaddid. You're going to be mutashaddid. Al-Imam Ibn Hazm had a sword. His tongue was a sword. And he used to really go in on Al-Imam Abu Hanifa, because Al-Imam Abu Hanifa used to go and do qiyas a lot, his madhab. And he didn't deserve that. There's a famous leader. His name is Yusuf al-Hajjaj ibn Yusuf al-Thaqafi. He was an oppressor, man. He was an oppressor. He used to kill the companions. He used to kill the companions. I mean, this man was an oppressor. And the strange thing about him is he still defended al-Islam. If you read Sir A'lam al-Nubala to Imam al-Dhahabi, and he talks about his biography, this man spread Islam all the way to India. And he stopped innovators and innovators, man. He was not a joke, brother, but he killed some of the companions. He was a problem. Chopped the head off of Abdullah ibn Zubair. His father is Az-Zubair ibn Awam, one of the 10 people promised Jannah. Az-Zubair was married to Asma, the daughter of Abu Bakr. And they had Abdullah, one of the 4 Abdullahs who narrated the majority of the hadith. But Abdullah ibn Zubair went against the leader. And Abdullah ibn Abbas was telling him, don't do this, don't do this, don't do it, don't do it. But he did it. And then he got caught and they chopped his head off and crucified him on the way to Mecca, so that anybody who was going into Mecca would see his head decapitated. When Abdullah ibn Abbas came, he said, "Oh, Abdullah ibn Zubayr, this is what I warned you of. This is what I told you."
The sunnah with us is the athar of Rasulillah. Some people will come and say, Abdullah ibn Zubair went against the leader. Sa'id ibn Jubair went against the leader. Abu Hanifa went against the leader. And they said, bring the sword. Athar, the athar with us is what the Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And I'm not putting those people down. I'm not putting those people down. It's what the Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So qiyas, ikhwani, listen. Qiyas is from our religion. It's from our religion, but not in aqidah, for the most part. What is qiyas? What is qiyas? The definition of qiyas is a taqdeer, to get an estimation. When the Dajjal comes, 40 days on the earth, 1 year, 1 day like a year, second day like a month, third day like a week, and the 37 subsequent days will be like our days. The companions say, Ya Rasulullah, how do we pray the salat? He said, qaddiruha taqdeera. Estimate the time. Try to figure it out. That's qiyas. The linguistic meaning, a taqdeer. But in the religion, and this is important, man, al-qiyas in the religion is ilhaq hukm al-asl lil-far' lishtirakihima fil-illa. That's in Arabic. I'm going to explain it to you real simple. Qiyas is, we have the ruling of something already in Islam, and then something new comes up that we don't have a ruling for that because it's new. It wasn't there during the time of the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But because of that new situation, it's similar to something that there's already a ruling for. We apply this ruling to that. For an example, what's the ruling of crack? Haram. Nasir, was crack during the time of Prophet Muhammad? No. So now if crack was introduced right now, people will say, oh, we could do this because it's not in the Quran and the Sunnah. We say, man, that's in the Quran and the Sunnah. That's in the Quran and the Sunnah, and it's qiyas. It's qiyas. All of those ayat about khamr and all of that apply to crack. This issue right here, with the microphone. Was this microphone present during the time of the Nabi? No. But when the Prophet got sick, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he was going through a sickness, and he was praying, and he would say, Allahu Akbar, and Abu Bakr would say, Allahu Akbar, so the people can hear that now is takbir. So we do this with that. That's what qiyas is. In fiqh. But there is no qiyas in aqidah. You can't make analogy about Allah's names and attributes. You can't do that. For the most part, you can't do that. That's what Al-Imam Ahmed is talking about. That there is no qiyas in the aqidah. Allah said in the Quran, وَكَلَّمَ اللَّهُ مُوسَى تَكْلِيمًا. Allah spoke to Musa. Qiyas is, we speak, and Allah spoke, so Allah's speaking is like our speech. Hey, no. Allah is knowledgeable, we're knowledgeable, so Allah's knowledge is like our knowledge. No. Ar-Rahman, ala al-arsh istawa. Nasir. Allah Rahman rose over his throne. Rising. Allah rose, and we go up in the elevator, the airplane, the helicopter. So we rose like Allah rose. La ya akhi. That qiyas is what Al-Imam Ahmed is talking. Don't do that. How can you do that? When everybody here knows, قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ اللَّهُ الصَّمَدُ لَمْ يَلِدْ وَلَمْ يُولَدْ وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٌ. Nothing is like unto him. Allah has two hands. His two hands are right hands. Not like yours. Not like yours. So when you start seeing those hadith and those things where Rasulullah described Allah, Allah is shy. Allah comes down. Allah has a shin. Allah this. Don't use your qiyas. What's so difficult about that, Yahi? They say, you got a hand in my pocket. Man, you got a hand in my pocket. What does that mean? That means when I came to Orlando, when I came to Kissimmee, Feroz used to make for me spaghetti and meatballs. I don't even eat on Friday before the Jummah. I don't eat. But them spaghetti and meatballs was so good, brother, that I would eat it and ask him the next Thursday, you gonna give me those spaghetti and meatballs? He has a hand in my pocket. What does that mean? I feel like I'm indebted to him. I'm indebted to him. And I can say that about different people in this community, brother. He has a hand in my pocket. I'm looking in this audience, they got a hand in my pocket. Does that mean his actual hand is in my pocket? His hand is in my pocket. Does it mean that? Doesn't mean that, man. Get out of here with that stuff. Don't make any qiyas. Allah has a hand, you got a hand. They say, Ra'sul Jabal, the head of the mountain, the top of the mountain. He's at the head of the army. The head. Is that a real head? Wasting our time with that nonsense. This is what Imam Ahmed is talking about. Now, I got to just give you, brothers, inshallah, in concluding these issues. And if we go over the time a little bit, I definitely can't see from this far. When I went to the eye doctor, he was asking me, I was like, forget about it. What time is the adhan? How many more minutes? Okay, we should have enough time. I'll get done with this, inshallah. There are some examples that the scholars used to prove this point of what Imam Ahmed is saying. This is important, man. This is important, man. Don't use your brain in the arena of Aqidah. Now listen, before I give you these examples, there is nothing wrong, as I mentioned to you before. We have to use our brains. So Allah mentioned over and over in the Quran, أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ? Would you not use your intellect? Huh? أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ أَوْ عَلَى قُلُوبِهِمْ أَكْفَالُهَا? Would they not consider, contemplate the Quran? What's wrong with you? Got to use your brain. Do they follow their fathers, although their fathers couldn't read and write and they didn't have any aql? Islam wants us to use our intellect. Islam is not telling us to put your intellect to sleep, but as it relates to the intellect, there's an arena that your intellect can enter into. And you're going to use your intellect? We have a brother from our community right here. After the prayers, he says, Subhanallah, 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 and he does the afkar out loud. You'll be shocked to know that people are agitated from that in other circles. And they have to ask the sheikh, oh, there are people who make the dhikr out loud. Is that from the sunnah? Wallahi, that's from the sunnah. Yeah, but they get into my nerve. Well, if you did it, it wouldn't get in your nerve. You do it. The Nabi did that. Salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. Now, if you don't want to do it, don't put your intellect. Yeah, but the person is showing off it. Yahi, that's not your arena. For an example, that's the meaning of this. You find that thing is authentic. Now, if there's ikhtilaf between the scholars in it, we're going to respect the ikhtilaf. But the least you should do is fall back, because you shouldn't blast him and he shouldn't blast you for not doing it. It's ikhtilaf. But the point is, in what I'm saying is, come on, man. Al-Isra wal-Mi'raj. Rasulullah was taken up, Subhanalladhi asra bi'abdihi min al-Masjid al-Haram in al-Masjid al-Aqsa. He was taken at nighttime from Mecca all the way to Bayt al-Maqdis, and then he went to the seven heavens. When he came back down and he came to Mecca, he saw a lot in that time. He saw Musa taking a shower. He saw a lot. Now he saw Musa taking a shower. Afwan. He saw a lot in that journey. And he went. When he came back, Some of the people who had believed apostated. They said, Muhammad has lost his mind. Some of the people, and that's why, listen, brothers, when you make sajda, you have to say, Allahumma ya muqallib al-qulub, thabbit qalbi ala dinik. I know people who have left the religion. I know people who have gone astray. They got divorced, they left the religion. She took off niqab, jilbab, everything. Now she out in the streets, homie. She's out in the streets. I know people like that. Well, on the sunnah, bugged out right now. Don't ever think that those companions, some people, he will open his fingers, they saw the water come out. They saw the water come out. They heard rocks and trees giving them salam, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They sat down to eat with the Nabi and they heard, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the fool saying, subhanallah, 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 and they apostated. And now we're going to look condescendingly on people. I'm from the firqat al-najiyah, and you're not. What you talking about? You better relax and pump your brakes before Allah Azza wa Jal does something to you. Especially the religious person. Now is not the time for that. Now is not the time for that. When they went to Abu Bakr Siddiq, they said, oh, we got you now, Abu Bakr, we got you now. You know what your companion is saying? He said, what did he say? He said he went to Mecca last night. He went to Bayt al-Maqdis last night. Last night. And went all the way up to the sky and came back in one night. And you know this journey takes a month. Abu Bakr said, I didn't hear him say that. But if he said that, I believe something that is greater than that. I believe something greater than what you have a problem with. Do you people know what was greater than that? You know? Abdul Haq? What? He said, I believe that the Quran comes to him from the sky. That's the greatest mu'jiza in al-Islam. The greatest mu'jiza is the Quran. He said, I believe him that he said he gets revelation from Allah. This thing you're talking about, it's big, but I believe greater than that. And the Nabi heard about it, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he called him As-Siddiq, Sigh al-Mubalagha, the real truthful one who ain't playing around, ain't taking no shorts, not playing no games. That's why, inshallah, the next baby or son you have, you should call him Abu Bakr. I mean, you Ramis, you should call him Abu Bakr. So listen. The angel of death came to Musa and said, you got to go now. You got to die. Your time is to die now. Every Nabi, every Rasul, everyone, before he died, Allah sent the angel to him to see if he wanted to stay or go. Rasulullah was sick. He was sick. And then the people heard him saying to the Rafiq al-A'la, to the Rafiq al-A'la, Bal ila Rafiq al-A'la. I want to go to the companionship that's on high. After some time, they said, Ya Rasulullah, why were you saying that? He said, every Nabi, before he dies, Allah gives him the takhyir. You want to stay or you want to go? And I was telling the angel, I want to go. I want to go. Every Nabi, every Rasul. The angel of death came to Musa and said, you got to go. The angel was in the form of a man. Musa said, oh yeah? He punched him in his eye, knocked his eye out. Why? Musa is from the Ulul Azm, from the major messengers. He doesn't have a problem with dying and going to the Rafiq al-A'la, but you come dressed as a human being talking about, I gotta go, and you ain't giving me no revelation, I'm putting you on Quiz Street. And that's how he dealt with it. Because he didn't let it, he punched his eyeball out. He went back to Allah and said, your slave doesn't want to go. He doesn't want to go. He said, go back, tell him, put his hand on the back of a foal, a bull. For every strand of hair will determine how many more years here. When the angel came, his eyeball was fixed. When he saw his fixed eyeball, Musa said, I ain't got no problem. They ain't got no eye operations back there, reconstructive surgery. He knows now. This is a Nabi. Today. Person, come on, man. You believe in that? You believe in that? Allahumma na'am, I believe in that. Brother, I believe in something greater than that. I believe that he said the revelation comes from the sky. That's what this means. Qiyas. I can't get my head around that. There, right there, can't get me. What? The Huru'een? Hey, Ali, this is not funny, Ali. Hey, Ali. The Huru'een in the Jannah. The Huru'een. She's going to pick her dress up and you'll be able to see through the bone marrow. The bone marrow. Through the bone, man. Through the bone. She put one dress up, colors. And when she finally, you'll see the bone marrow. Now, when I was in North Kakalaki, we were eating chicken and lamb. They were sucking the bone marrow out. I ain't no bone marrow dude. I don't eat chicken feet. I don't eat chicken heads. But bone marrow. Anybody, does bone marrow look attractive to you? Don't look attractive. I don't want no bone marrow. But Yomul Qiyamah, it's a different situation. The milk doesn't spoil. The khamr, it don't get you on. You ain't on after you drink that khamr. You ain't on. Don't use your brain like that. That's the meaning of this hadith. So I just give you two last examples and we out of here, inshallah. How much more time we got? Inshallah? 5 minutes. First example, Ikhwani, is Abdullah ibn Abbas, scholar of Islam, and this is important. I need you guys to focus on this. Abu Huraira said to the people, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, anything that the fire touches, cooking, anything that the fire touches, it breaks your wudu. Any meat that you eat that the fire touched back then, you barbecue something, you cook anything, boiled meat, and you got wudu, like right now, you eat it back then, it breaks your wudu. Abdullah ibn Abbas, Nasir, I know you tired, homie. Abdullah ibn Abbas, go wash your mug, man. Go wash your mug and come back, man. Abdullah ibn Abbas, scholar of Islam, dealt with the Khawarij, one of the 4 people who most hadith. Abdullah ibn Abbas, the Nabi hugged him and said, Allahumma allimhu ta'wil al-Quran. Teach him the Quran. He's a scholar. When he heard this hadith, he said to Abu Huraira, hey, what do you mean anything that touches the fire? You have to make wudu from it. Why don't you just order the people, if they make wudu from water that was boiled, they have to make wudu from that wudu? They have to make wudu from that wudu? Abu Huraira looked at him and said, Ya ibn Akhi, oh son of my brother. You're a youngster, you're young. Your father Abbas, the uncle of the Nabi, Abu Huraira was on the scene with them. He said, oh, son of my brother, nephew. Hey, nephew. When I tell you the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, accept it. Give it the program. And don't push it back with that stuff what you just did. This is what it's talking about. Now, this is critical, brothers. I need your undivided attention. Mentioning this as an example is not taken away from Ibn Abbas as a companion. A'udhu billah. We do not talk bad about the companions. Oh, well, that will make zina, and that one will. We don't do that. We don't do that. Something's wrong with you. So when you mention these examples, it is not to take Ibn Abbas down at all. Ibn Abbas is a wali from the awliya of Allah. Wallahi, he's in the Jannat al-Firdaus, inshallah, with the Nabi of Islam, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's the first thing. Second thing concerning Ibn Abbas is, Ibn Abbas did something that Hizbis do. Ibn Abbas did something that the Mubtadi'ah do. He did something that innovators do. Push back the dalil with their intellect. They push back the dalil with their intellect. Are we going to say Ibn Abbas is a Hizbi? Ibn Abbas is a Mubtadi? No, we're not going to say that. Why? Because it's possible that a person is not necessarily astray and he's not doing it to be mean, cruel, to be arrogant. He made a mistake. Ibn Abbas did what he did. May Allah be pleased with him and make us with him in Al-Jannah. He didn't hear the other hadith. And so when he heard that hadith, he was like, well, why don't you just order people if they make wudu? It's Medina, it's cold in Medina. They warm the water up for wudu in Medina. That's a sign that the wife loves the husband. The wife gets up early, she warms the water up. Like you brothers, we don't know this here in the UK and in America. We don't know this. But back in Morocco and back in Medina and Mecca and in Sham where it's cold, Pakistan, Afghanistan, the lady will get up and warm the water up for her husband and get the way he's going to go to the toilet, akramakumullah, make it stinja, everything is warm. Abu Hanif know about that. We don't know about that here. So this is something they did. Why don't you just tell them that if they make water from the ibrik and it's warm and it make wudu from wudu? Hey. I told you what the Prophet said. Don't do that. Another very important thing about Ibn Abbas is Ibn Abbas went to Iraq, and when he was in Iraq, some of the people of Iraq were asking all these crazy questions. We're going to make Hajj. We're going to make Hajj. If we kill a mosquito and the blood comes out, do we have to slaughter? Because if you're a person in Ihram, you can't kill animals, stuff like that. A mosquito, he said, where you people from? They came for Hajj. Where you people from? They said, we're from Iraq. He said, you're asking me about the blood of a mosquito and you chopped the head off of the grandson of the Nabi? What you talking about, the blood of a mosquito? And you people chopped the grandson of the Nabi off. Your intellect. Ibn Abbas, radiallahu anhu, he did say, Ya Abu Hurairah, why don't you just tell them make wudu from the water that's warm? He didn't know. He's not a hizbi. He's not a mubtadi like other people make that mistakes. The dalil of that, he was sitting with the people telling them about the ahkam of al-hajj. They said, which hajj is the best? He said, the Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the best hajj, ma'ajja. The hajj, ma'ajja. The hajj that you say, labbaik Allahumma labbaik, a lot and loud. And the one where you slaughter, that's the best one. They said, but Abu Bakr and Umar didn't say that. That wasn't Abu Bakr and Umar's opinion. Abdullah ibn Abbas got up, started, he started wiping himself off. He said, oh man. He said, I tell you people that Rasulullah said, the athar, as-sunnatu indana, al-athar. I tell you that Rasulullah said something, and you tell me Abu Bakr and Umar? He said, I'm getting out of here before stones come from the sky and people are destroyed. I'm giving you the dalil, rafal yadain, put your feet together. Whatever the issue is, whatever the issue is. So those are the 3 points I want to make about Abdullah ibn Abbas. Lastly, and this is really important. From what the scholars of Islam use to prove this point about not pushing the statements of Rasulullah back or the Quran with your intellect, is what happened with a companion by the name of Hamil al-Nabigha. He had a slave girl who got into a quarrel with another person, and they got into some fisticuffs. And his slave girl picked up a rock and hit that lady in the stomach and killed her baby. when the Prophet heard about it and he judged, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said to the owner of the slave girl, you have to pay for what happened, the diya. You have to pay the diya. Hamil ibn Nabigha said, Ya Rasulullah, كيف أغرم من ما أكل وما شرب وما نطق وما استهل إن في ذلك إن مثل ذلك يطل. Ya Rasulullah, why should I have to pay blood money for a creation? It didn't eat, it didn't drink, it didn't speak, it didn't scream out, it ain't even a human being yet. Verily, this type of penalty should be rendered null and void. The Prophet says, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, inna hadha min ikhwan al-kahina. This is from the brothers of the soothsayers who make this kind of poetry, because the words rhymed. This is the kalam of the kuffar who be rhyming words. I tell you Allah says something and you come and tell me something like that. Radiyallahu anhu. We're not putting him down. Ya Rasulullah, you're going to penalize me because my slave girl caused the death of this child, and this child didn't speak, didn't drink, can't speak, didn't scream out. It's not even alive. Verily, this type of penalty should be rendered null and void. That's the meaning of this particular bab that we're dealing with. وما كان لمؤمن ولا مؤمنة إذا قضى الله ورسوله أمرا أن يكون لهم الخيرة من أمرهم. It's not befitting for a believing man, believing woman, if Allah or His Messenger make a decision about something, for the believer to have any say so. So as it relates to the Aqidah of Al-Islam, Usul Sunnah, take these names, these attributes, the way they came, and we just leave it like that without getting deep into them. And Allah, Rabbuna wa Khaliquna, A'la wa A'lam. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika wa ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant. Astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.